Good morning. So, like Dr. Vilova said, we represented Event Finder. It's a website that was designed for Marilee Driscoll and John Berg. They're right here in the front. To my left is Nathan McGarvey. He's one of our full stack developers. To his left is Dominic DeSantis, our other full stack developer. To my right is Derek Kohansky. He's our Scrum Master and front end developer. And to his right is Alex Sturslin, our systems administrator and back end developer.
So like Adam said, Event Finder is a website and event aggregator. It finds events from all across the web and displays them to the user upon search. Users can filter their searches to tailor the results to their liking. When a user clicks on an event, more information about it is shown, including a link to a Google map where they can find the location of the event. And we gather events through web crawling and scraping. So let's define these terms since they're vital to our project. A web crawler autonomously navigates the web, indexing sites, and a web scraper is used to obtain data from a single web page. So in our tool, our web crawler indexes the sites we want events from, and our web scraper takes the event data from that page. There are 3 scraping targets, which we'll get to in a moment. So the problem Event Finder aims to tackle is gathering all types of events from various sources. These events should be both local and national for smaller cities as well as large ones. So by local events, we mean things like bake sales that would go on in small towns, and by national events, let's say a national convention hosted in Boston. So our software is required to gather various events from a variety of sources, some of which being uncommon, which we'll get to. It should store these events in our database. Event Finder should also detect the user's location, so we can do things like display them events based on their proximity. And users should be able to apply filters to their searches to tailor the results to their liking. So the uncommon sources, what do we mean by this? Well, to increase the variety of our events, we wanted to find niche sources that would give us a competitive edge. So while brainstorming this idea, we decided to practice continuous development. So what we did is we developed the Eventbrite and Meetup scrapers to start populating our event database. So Eventbrite and Meetup are both dedicated sites, so they did not yet satisfy our requirements. We needed to create the Gatehouse Media Scraper to completely satisfy them.
So, like Dom said, we have sort of 2 categories of different events that we store on Event Finder. The first one is the more common events, which, like he said, are things like conventions and concerts, things that are well known to everybody throughout the nation. Because of this, the first implemented scrapers in our project were the Meetup and Eventbrite scrapers. Meetup and Eventbrite are dedicated event sites all on their own, and they have a wide range of commonly known events that we scrape. This is handled using APIs, which are application programming interfaces. Application programming interfaces are tools created by the developers of the original project, so in this case Eventbrite and Meetup, so that other developers like us can more easily access their content. Because of this, APIs have limits on what they allow us to do. So we have limits on what are called calls. So Meetup allows us to do 200 calls every hour, and Eventbrite allows us to do 2,000 calls every hour. In the case of our site, a call is simply an event. So Meetup allows us to scrape 200 events every hour, and Eventbrite allows us to scrape 2,000 events every hour. APIs also restrict us by providing us keys. Keys are tokens provided by the creators of the API so that they may track who's using their API and so that they allow us to access their content. For the uncommon sources problem, we have the Gatehouse Media Scraper. And Gatehouse Media it's a large local news conglomerate that owns 540 different local newspaper websites throughout the country. What our Gatehouse Scraper does is it's composed of 3 modules. The first one locates and indexes different calendars on these local news sites, so it goes to the sites and actually finds where the calendars are located. The second module indexes all events within 10 days on these calendar sites. And the third scrapes event data from all of these individual event pages. All page navigation is handled using Selenium WebDriver, which is a framework used for testing web browsers. So our project literally opens a web browser, waits for it to load, and then scrapes all the HTML data. For scraping that HTML data, we use the Python library scrapey, which goes through different HTML tags and takes out all the data that we need for events. Here's our architecture. It's linear. It's, you know, as you can see, we have our 3 scrapers that pull event data from the internet. It puts it through a parser. And what a parser does is it filters out all of the unnecessary information from our events so that what we end up putting in the database is only the useful event information like location and date and time and stuff like that. And then that is displayed on our website so that the users can see whatever events they're looking for. Our server environment was constructed with a LAMP stack, which is Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. Aside from that, we are using 2 modules, fail2ban and uncomplicated firewall, which are security measures that prevent unwanted connections. On the back end, we have 4 tools: Python, PHP-MyAdmin, PHP, and crontab. Python is what was used in the Meetup scraper, and is also what was used in the Gatehouse scraper, along with, as I mentioned before, Selenium and Scrapey. For manipulating the database, we're using PyMySQL. We use PHP-MyAdmin to do any backend management on the database or on the server. We use PHP for a lot of different backend scripts. The Eventbrite scraper was actually created in PHP. And we use crontab to run scripts at different intervals. So like we mentioned before that the APIs have limits on how many calls we can do in an hour. So crontab allows us to run all of these different scrapers every hour, or in the case of like Gatehouse, whenever it finishes. We also have, as a little side note, we also have a JavaScript plugin to automatically detect the user's location when they log into the site. Our 3 database modules are the city matcher, expired event remover, and missing location remover. So the first one, the city matcher, will take the latitude and longitude of an event in our database and then grab a city and any other location info based on that latitude and longitude, and then fill in the gaps for us. So if we get an event with only a latitude and longitude, we can get all the other location data that we need. The expired event remover removes any events whose times have expired, so if it's past the date of the event. And the missing location remover removes any events that are missing latitude and longitude. And the reason for this is because we need the latitude and longitude as a minimum for our location. If we don't have that, then we can't use a lot of the features on the site. On the front end, we're using the Bootstrap framework. Bootstrap is a set of classes for HTML that allows us to more easily scale our website. It just provides a lot of convenient front-end utility. We have 2 JavaScript plugins, jQuery and jQuery UI, which allow us to make different animations, and it allows us to make the front end more visually appealing. A lot of the HTML on our site is also built using PHP scripts. All right, demonstration.
Okay, so here you can see our landing page, where this is where you'll go when you come onto the site in the beginning. You can see that the name of the site is in the top right. The search bar is in the middle with a Show Events Near Me button in the center. If we were to click on that Show Events Near Me button, it'll bring you to events within 35 miles of the current user, organized by proximity. So it'll show events closest to you and then further away. It doesn't really show up, but
On the screen.
all right, so anyway, as you can see in the top right corner, we have one page has 2. Each page has 20 events, 5 by 4. And if we were to get rid of the 35-mile parameter, we would get more events, showing 254 of our events currently standing right now. We can navigate through these pages very simply and easily by pressing the Next button and the Down 5 button to navigate throughout the pages. We can also organize these pages by clicking on proximity and clicking on date to sort them by those things. Next, if anyone could have a input for our search bar.
Anyone have any suggestions?
02740.
What is that?
02740.
Okay,
Is it-
so does anyone else
Yeah.
have?
Do you have like an event name?
Big for some golf.
Bake sale? Okay. I love bake sale.
We've actually practiced with bake sale.
Yeah, we practice with it.
So here you can see we have 13 events right now listed and organized this way. These events can be shown with this five input setup, or if you want to scale it down to tablet or mobile devices, you can bring it down to 3. Bring it down to 3 for tablet, and then 1 for mobile devices, and it would scale automatically because of Bootstrap. And then if we want to narrow our search even more, we can put in a radius of 100 miles and a location of Massachusetts. It would search for both of these things to bring only events within 100 miles and events within Massachusetts. So right now, luckily we only have one event that satisfies our parameter, the gluten-free event, bake sale. If we click on that, we will get more information, such as the title of the event, the location of the event, how far away it is, what time the event is at, and extra information about this event. There's also a Get Directions button, which can be clicked, and will link you to a Google Maps page, where you can then click on directions and find yourself from any location to any other to the starting location and get directions there. We can then go back to our event finder site and exit out of that. And if we click on the title again, it will bring us back to our home page where you can start it all over again. Or if you like to navigate by URL, type in the URL. And if you were to put in a wrong input, some sort of gibberish like this, you could get onto a 404 page that will show that you have put in a wrong URL, but even though you have put in this wrong URL, you can still search for events in the search bar, such as Boston. And then it will bring you back to the events page. You can start all over again. That will be the end of the demonstration.
So these are the software tools we use throughout the development process. We used Trello, which is for task organization and to track our Scrum process. Our sprints lasted 2 weeks and we had bi-weekly meetings. We used Google Drive for documentation and notes. Discord, which is a voice over IP application we used for internal communication. We used GitLab with SourceTree for version control. SourceTree is a nice friendly user interface so we don't have to interact with the command line. And finally, we used for our IDEs or integrated development environments, we used to code the project, or Notepad++, idle, and Conda. So future improvements, or where do we see this project going? Well, first and foremost, we would need more sources for events. This would increase the variety and number of events for users to search from. We'd also like to improve the efficiency of our web crawler and scrapers. So right now, the Gatehouse scraper takes about 6 hours to run because of the time of loading each web page, since they're loaded with JavaScript and not just plain HTML. It takes about 6 hours, so if we wanted to, for whatever reason in the future, get events more frequently, we need to improve the efficiency. And lastly, we would like to implement a zone weight search. So this kind of search, we would weigh event titles and locations heavier than descriptions. So right now when you search, you may be, say you search Boston, you may be getting events with Boston in the description, but let's say the event previously occurred in Boston and it's not actually there now. With this zone weight search, you'd be getting more prevalent searches first.
Questions?